I should probably retitle this video as Dear Black People. There's a reason for this. As a white person, I am not to blame for everything that has happened wrong in your life. As a victim of rape, it is not my fault that you were raped. As a victim of police brutality, it is not my fault that you were brutalized. Most of the black folks who were locked up nationwide were homeless when they were locked up. 81% of the incarcerated population of the United States were homeless when they were locked up. I'm going to read something here. This is another one of those bullshit BLM posts. All right, so Katie Clement, she reposted this from a guy named Jared Price. He wants to bring up the Bible to try to shame people into jumping in the wrong fucking tub. I'm going to read this first before I tell you why it is so incredibly wrong. Jared Price types, if you're a Christian and can't hear Black Lives Matter without feeling the need to respond with a criticism that all lives matter, then crack open your Bible and head up Luke 15. Well, let's look up Luke 15 here. That's probably a good idea, isn't it? Luke 15. This is a whole book, believe it or not. The parable of the lost sheep. Now, this is starting at Luke 15 for some reason. It says, now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees, the ruling class of Israel at the time, and the teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Oh. Of course Jesus would, wouldn't he? Invite sinners to his table to eat. Goddamn right he would. Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. And then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. So, first of all, this parable has been taken completely out of context. Imagine that. Imagine a Christian taking something completely out of context. Now, I'm also going to break this down the same way that I did with that Bob meme, where Bob is the only one at the table who didn't get something to eat. Y'all, when you use the Bible, read the story, understand it. Don't fucking twist that shit to whatever fits your fancy at the time, whatever fits your bias or your hatred at the time. That's fucking gross. That's a good book. It really is. The New Testament's my favorite book ever. Imagine that. And I'm not even a Christian. There was a movie about the end of the world where the whole world was freezing. There was this librarian wouldn't let them burn the Bible. Wasn't a Christian, didn't even believe in God. But he wasn't going to let them burn the Bible. So now that we're already aware that this is taken completely out of context, let's also focus on the fact that we're only focusing on one sheep, and it's a very specific sheep because of the color of its wool. This black sheep is obviously worth more than the other sheep who were lost. Jared Price types, if you were a Christian and can't hear Black Lives Matter without feeling the need to respond with a criticism that all lives matter, then crack open your Bible and hit up Luke 15. Don't have it handy? Let's summarize. You mean you're going to reinterpret it for us? Okay, well let's allow you to reinterpret the Bible as you see fit. There are 100 sheep, but one goes missing. Jesus leaves the 99 and goes after the one. Jesus didn't leave to go after any of them. He never left. He was telling a story with a moral about sinners. Are we calling all black people sinners? Is that what you're doing here? Is BLM, or in specific, Qasim Rashid, the guy who shared this, and this guy, Jared Price, it's a white guy. When I say BLM is a racially motivated hate group, you don't have to be black to be racist. You don't have to be white to be racist. Anybody can be racist. Anybody can join a hate group. Did you know that in the state of Colorado, in the early 1900s, there were black members of the KKK in Colorado? You know, recently here in Chapel, Nebraska, Nebraska's largest collection of KKK memorabilia was found. Where? In the attic of Joel Jay, the county prosecutor, who is now a judge in Kansas. It was found in the attic of his office. Imagine that. It says there are 100 sheep, but one goes missing. Jesus leaves the 99 and goes after the one. The 99, but what about us? Don't we matter? Of course the 99 still matter, but they're not the ones in danger. The one is. Well, I typed, you just assumed only one is missing. There are at least 30 missing, but you only care about the black one. And that about fucking sums it up. Do you know why? Because we're not talking about black and white issues here. We're talking about police brutality. We're talking about judicial misconduct. We're talking about the fact that the police, the judges, the courts, the public pretenders, all the way up the line, are allowing child molesters and rapists and murderers to go so that they can lock up homeless people who are easy to railroad. Many of these homeless people are black. Many of them are white. Many of them are men. Many of them are women. And we all have our own issues that we have to deal with. We get to hear from people in houses a bunch of ignorant goddamn bullshit. There's a woman, she's from here in Chapel. And I'm going to read what she typed. Now, mind you, this is after a whole week of I don't need a man, I don't need a man, I don't need nobody, I don't need nobody, I don't need nobody. Turns out that she isn't paying attention to her own life, how much help she's had, how much her loved ones have been involved. Let's see, this one, it says, I'm single because I require too much simple shit that nobody can seem to do. Those are called expectations. And then, now mind you, this woman very much lots of drama through most of the time that I've known her, and she's not the pretty girl, not even close. So when she gets attention, when she gets a man's attention, especially because she craves that attention. She wants that attention. But she's not pretty, so she doesn't have people throwing themselves at her all the time. It's not at all like being an Alyssa Derry or a Natalie Bollinger or Jamie Curtis. So it says, please hear me, girl. It gets better. I wish that I could tell you the exact day of the week that the sun will begin to shine again, but I can't. It's gradual. You'll feel lighter a little more each day. And of course, this is going to go on and on and on and on. This is somebody trying to reassure her that it'll be all right. And you guys do this all the fucking time. So much useless shit. Basically, you're putting a patch on their emotions, but there's real issues underneath. Now, this woman, she posts up a lot of anti-black stuff. She also posts up a lot of stuff about what the protesters are doing and how these are all rioters. They're always rioters. It's never a protest. They're always rioters. And she's always talking about the Jesus, the Jesus, the Jesus, the Jesus. And Jesus is this, and Jesus is that. And Jesus is going to deliver her from this and from that, and so on and so forth. And she posts up a bunch about the Jesus and then a whole bunch of shit about how much men suck. And holy fuck, lady. Jesus can't fix that. Jesus can't fix the drama that you crave. And I understand. And I know a lot of your family. I understand your mom is a fucking whack job. She's a very sweet lady, but she's a fucking whack job. Your sister's nice, but she's not a pretty one either. I got to see y'all growing up here in Chapel, Nebraska, how you were friends with the pretty girls sometimes, depending on if they were hanging out with their real friends, their good-looking friends, or if you were the only person to hang out with. I got to see how all the boys in school had crushes on, well, the same guys that you did, but you never stood a chance. I got to see how when you got pregnant because you got messed up on drugs and alcohol, one of them guys that you was thinking was all dreamy, I got to see how he reacted and how you reacted when you got pregnant. Like for him, you know, it was, hey, I'm drunk, I'm horny, I want to go get some. And he's the good-looking guy that all the other girls are after too. So when he didn't want to stay with you after getting you pregnant, well, then it's all men's fault. Men's fault. Men's fault. You know, it took her 6 or 7 years to stop talking about this dude. How terrible he is, and so on and so forth. You know, I feel bad for her situation. I really do. I also know a lot more about his situation than I'd like to. Now, that's not the stuff that I was wanting to go through, though. She types a whole bunch of stuff about true love and Jesus and how she doesn't need a man because she's got Jesus, followed swiftly an hour later by how she needs a man. All right, more of that stuff, more of that stuff. It's a bunch of I need love, I need love. I'm strong, I'm strong. I'm being strong for my kids. I'm being strong for my kids. I'm going insane, and so on and so forth. And it's, you know, I'm still going through the stuff that she's posted from today, and it's just a bunch of the same stuff over and over. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I don't need a man. I don't need a man. I don't need a man. I need a man. I need a man. I need a man. I'm so alone. I'm so alone. I'm so alone. I'm glad I got my kids. Glad I got my kids. Glad I got my kids. Meanwhile, her sister isn't going to let her fucking hang. Her mom isn't going to let her hang. The lady's crazy, but she's not a bad person. Y'all got to understand something here. I grew up with the craziest of the crazies, and I know the difference between shitty people and crazy people. Most crazy people aren't shitty. You're shitty to them, and then you fucking punish them for reacting to your punishment. It's like going up and socking somebody in the face 20 times, and then when they sock you back in the face, you go, hey, he's obviously fucking dangerous. Look, he fucking punched me in the face. Fucking duh. This one, it says, I'm not waiting for a hero. Oh, absolutely she is. She's had many, many people rescue her in her lifetime. I happen to be one of them. It says, I'm not waiting for a hero. I saved myself a long time ago. No, she didn't. I was there. Her family was there. We looked out for her. We made sure that she was safe the best that we could. And when she wasn't safe, it was her own decisions that put her there. Her own decisions not to leave when she had all the help in the world and could have, but she was in love with the abuse. It's fucking crazy. Says, I don't need someone to complete me. You're right. There's only one of you. So that right there is at least a true statement. It says, I am whole alone. And yes, you are. But also in the context that she types that, she's not. She feels empty inside. She types, I just want a weirdo to go on adventures with. Me too. But I also know that she's only into the pretty boys. She wants the same guys that the rest of y'all do. Let me tell you the story of Larry Martinez. Larry Martinez beat a few women, at least two of them that I know. One of them, she lives in Lodgeport, Nebraska, just 9 miles away, where I walk to school every day from Chapel, Nebraska, jog back every day. Well, she married Larry, and he socked her in the jaw, or socked her in the eye socket, one day, caved in her eye socket. And she did something that most of the women that I have known in my lifetime in those situations did not do. She went to the police, she pressed charges, she kicked him out, and she never allowed him back. Never again, she said. And she, unlike most of the women that I know, she at least meant it. When I helped her with that situation and helped to move him out, and helped to get all of that out of there so that she didn't have to deal with him again. When I stayed on her couch for almost a week, I want to say it was probably only 2 or 3 days because he was out. She was afraid. But guess what he did? He went out, got himself another girlfriend. This was girlfriend number 7. He shot her in the head. That's what happens when police don't do nothing. When you try to turn in your predator, people say you need to let it go. You need to let it go. No, you don't. If you don't come forward, you are just as much to blame for his next victim. You are just as much to blame. She doesn't just want a weirdo to go on adventures with. She wants a good looking person. She wants him to have a nice body. She wants him to have a pretty smile. And she wants him to be weird. But not weird in his own way, weird in her way. Similar interests. Now, she's not a bad person, but she doesn't recognize the hypocrisy of this. Always talking about God do this, God will do that. God isn't doing shit for her. She talks about how God is her salvation and He's going to deliver her, and then she bitches about how much everything sucks for a week. How much she needs a man, followed by I don't need a man, I've got Jesus. Followed by I'm so alone, followed by I'm so glad I got my kids, on rotation every day, like clockwork. Many times talking about how she did it all herself, how she got through it all by herself. Meanwhile, she didn't just have emotional support. She had active family members, people who actively pursue her safety. If she called her mom today, said, Mom, I need a ride. I'm not safe here. Her mom would help her out. Her mom wouldn't be allowed to help out much in court because of the mentally ill tag. And there's a lot of stuff that goes along with that, like the government telling you who you are and are not allowed to be friends with, who you are and are not allowed to have in your household for how long. Right now, some of y'all know that I was complaining about this place before Natalie died. How much it sucked. How they weren't following the rules. The people who run the place weren't following the rules. Well, now they're in trouble. See, that keeps happening. I speak out about these places and nobody fucking cares. That's what it's like to be called mentally ill. Let me explain to you what it feels like to be called mentally ill. You know that if you turn in that predator, you won't be able to do it to somebody else. You try to turn in that predator, you get treated like you're the bad guy or like you're crazy or don't know what the fuck you're talking about. 6 months later, that guy does it to somebody else and it's all over the news. He wouldn't have had the chance to do that to anyone else if people had listened to me. But then again, I'm not black, am I? You got 30 sheep missing. You're only focused on the black one. You got people who are having their children stolen. You tell them, hey, if you're not focused on black lives right now, then you're racist. Are you fucking kidding me? You want them to drop all of the bullshit that they're going through to support Black Lives Matters when they're trying fucking like hell to get their fucking kids back, hoping that their children aren't being raped by the fucking foster families that they're forced to live with. Having their children stolen from them, having their rights in court taken away, their right to due process of law. I want you to look up a Facebook group. It's called Court Victims United. Hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of stories. But we only got one sheep missing, right? Crystal Khan, her daughter was murdered by her ex-husband. Can you imagine a father strangling his daughter to death? And this woman isn't against Black Lives Matters, but her daughter's life matters. It mattered to her. She has another daughter who's being thrown through this. She has another daughter who is being victimized by the police and by the system. Because the police and the judicial system and their negligence is what led to Mr. Sharkey, the fuck ever his last name is. The guy's a meth user, a meth dealer, a racist. He's also friends with cops, DA. Crystal Khan has the evidence. She's been doing what I've been doing, posting up the evidence on her Facebook for the whole world to see because nobody will fucking listen to her. But yeah, all lives matters means she's racist, right? Right? Her daughter is dead. She's got another daughter who's being railroaded by the people who covered up a fucking murder. But black lives are what's important right now. Meanwhile, I have it thrown in my face how people owned people hundreds of years ago. People are owned today. The homeless are your slaves. It is legal according to the 13th Amendment to the Constitution that anyone who commits a crime and is convicted of a crime can be used as a slave. But we don't call it slavery. We call it, that's right, you guessed it, community service. Change the name of it and it makes it all right, doesn't it? This young woman, I rescued her more than once. I'm not the only person that did. She does deserve better. I don't agree with her rhetoric. But then again, she was raised here in Nebraska. I mean, what the fuck does she know about black lives or black rights? But then you got Crystal Khan. She knows about a lot. Sharkus. That's her ex's last name. Sharkus. Her daughter's name was Sam. Candace Bondurant, she's white. True Arts Lover 98 says message restricted, but they originally typed heartbreaking, and it is. It's not that these people are racist. It's that there's more than one sheep missing. Some of these people that have been in contact with me are in contact with me because they have missing loved ones. Some of them have been in contact with me because their loved ones are dead. And the courts won't do anything, and they want any outlet, any way to get just someone to listen who actually cares. We get it thrown at us that because we're white, everything is our fault. Meanwhile, we are being victimized by the very same fucking people that you are. The homeless, parents, black folks, Native Americans. The government doesn't give a fuck about any of us. And neither the fuck do the police. There are people backing police into corners now, and the police don't fucking like it. Who do they sound like? They sound like the people that they fucking murdered. Meanwhile, the excuses that racists make why it's okay to do these things to black people, these are racists. Not white people, very specifically racists. Now, when you, as black people, say these things about the homeless. Oh, it's not racist. You're right. Technically, it's not racist. It's still prejudice. You don't like it when that happens to you. You don't like it when people just assume that about you. You don't like walking into an establishment and getting treated like you're a fucking junkie. You must be because of the color of your skin, do you? You don't like being treated like when you go into an auto parts store to buy the part that you need to fix your car that's broken down, getting treated like you're there to steal something. You don't like that feeling, do you? Or the one where the dude follows you around in a very shitty tone. He's treating you like you don't have the money to be there. You know, when I was homeless, when I'd walk into an establishment, I would walk in with the biggest bills on the outside. And I would walk in with money in my hand so that I wouldn't get that fucking treatment. I know it's not fun. I know it's not pretty. And I know that black people do have to go through this shit, but you are not the only ones. That story of Jesus with the lost sheep, that's for a wayward sheep. That's for a sheep that wandered off away from the herd. That is for a sheep that is lost and alone. A sheep that is easy to victimize because they are alone. Most homeless people are homeless because they are alone. This woman who I was reading to you her timeline, she doesn't know what this is like, but she does know the fear of having her kids took. I spoke up about Clearview in January 2018. In February of 2018. And guess what? Nobody fucking cared. I spoke out about the druggings and the abuse and how these people were not professionals. Matter of fact, while I'm talking about this, I'm going to start clicking up the news articles for you to pay some goddamn attention to. You don't want to believe me? Maybe you'll listen to this shit. I spoke out about Waylon Lolatai and him assaulting me. And nobody gave a shit. Officer Waylon Lolatai assaulted 6 more people after me. Even had a special thing on the news specifically about him. But when the news spoke out, they left my name out of it. Now let's pay attention to the fact that the abuse that I spoke out about, that I was treated like I was crazy and making up, they killed Tibor Hatay 5 months later. Something could have been done, but nobody wants to listen to the mentally ill. This is a short one. It's 2 minutes and 52 seconds long. This is from Clearview. I'm posting it over here in the live chat off to the right-hand side. Those of you who aren't watching this live, well, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, most of the chat stuff is below it that you guys type, but the stuff that was typed while we were actually live will be up in the upper right-hand corner. This is a 2 minute and something second thing about Clearview. Tibor Hatay was not the first victim either. He also wasn't the last one. They killed a woman that year as well, and her name, to my knowledge, has not been released to this day. Tibor Hatay, however, is dead as a goddamn doornail, and his family deserves justice. This one is called Dying for Help, a mental health crisis in Clearview. This is from Denver 7, Tony Kowaleski. Matter of fact, I know nearly everybody that's in the video. Let's see. Copy link address. Bring it over here. This one's almost 24 minutes long. This is about Clearview. Now let's go to another one. We'll go to Wayland Lolatai, Boulder. Already there. Nice. This one's graphic. So you will need to be able to turn off the adult settings that are on YouTube if you have them turned on. Otherwise, you won't be able to see it. How graphic does it have to be if you have to do that? Fuck the goddamn pigs. Here's another one on him about his. This is new body cam video shows the same cop's pattern of violence. He needs fired now. I'm not talking about just the same general vicinity when I'm talking about these officers, or just the same departments. I'm talking about this specific officer. I'm talking about this specific facility. I'm talking about these specific people. Very specific. They all have names. It's not white people. It's not black people. They are predators. So we might as well just call them all predator. It's what they are. Now, you're going to notice something about Wayland Lolatai. By the way, Wayland Lolatai was involved in that situation with Zaid Atkins. By the way, that was not a racially motivated issue. It wasn't. If that is their standard procedure for people who dress like that in Boulder, Colorado, even people who are picking up garbage, then it's not a black issue. A lot of people are like, he was absolutely profiled. I never said he wasn't. Matter of fact, I agree. He was profiled. He was wrongly profiled. They thought he was homeless. And they were wrong. And everybody's argument all revolves around this guy not being homeless. How fucking stupid. Meanwhile, they're trying to get Officer Smiley's job back. Who's they? The police officers union. And his fellow officers, of course. They don't feel that he should have been fired for something that they are taught to do to homeless people every goddamn day. But I can't fight this fight because they won't allow me to go to my own goddamn court dates. I can't show them evidence because they won't look at it. I literally did everything that I could to try to force the police to take a look at that for over a year before Natalie was killed. Being forced to break the law because the police don't want to do their goddamn jobs. Being forced to break the law because the public pretenders aren't going to do their goddamn jobs. Being forced to break the law because the medical community is not going to do their goddamn jobs. And this is nationwide. Nationwide. Now let's get to another death. Demetrius Shankling. Let's look this name up. Now, a lot of y'all don't give a shit because Demetrius Shankling was a white boy. But then again, what does this white boy and Zaid Atkinson have in common? They're both fucking college kids. Roofs over their heads. Families that fucking care. But there's more to do about Zaid Atkinson than there is about Demetrius Shankling. It's not just Waylon Lolatai with this pattern of violence. It is the entire Boulder Police Department. Demetrius Shankling, Boulder. Let's post this one up for you. By the way, both of these officers were involved in my situation. In Demetrius Shankling's case, the officers were charged with manslaughter. A lot of people want to use that. Say, oh, well, look, they did something about this white boy. They did something about this white boy. Look, see, they care more about white people than us. Look at the difference between those two situations. We've got a college student who is killed by police. And then we've got a college student who is mistaken for a homeless person. And they're a lot nicer to him than they would have been to a homeless person. But he's afraid for his life. Meanwhile, those officers didn't assault him, did they? They didn't kill him, did they? They didn't have him injected with drugs, did they? Now, what's that like? I can show you that as well. I can show you what it is that Elisha McLean had to go through. I can show you what it is that Tybor Tay had to go through. I can show you what it is that I had to go through. Tony Timpa, the officers in this case, by the way, Tony Timpa was white. Also comes from an upper class community. He also didn't pose any real risk to anybody there. And those officers decided whether or not this man should be injected with the drugs that killed him. Not a doctor, the police made that decision. And the EMT, right in front of your eyes, injects this man with a chemical concoction that likely consists of Haldol, among other things. Now, Haldol in and of itself is dangerous. But then you're mixing it with a catalyst like Benadryl. And Benadryl alone is really not that dangerous. But then you're mixing it with an enhancer. They call it a B52. And this one, they call it a Greenview Special, I believe. When I was in Scottsbluff, they called it a B52. When I was at Clearview, they called it a B52. I was assaulted by Waylon Lolatai about 2 weeks after Natalie Bollinger disappeared. Those officers knew exactly what they were doing, and they did it intentionally. I was made homeless and victimized repeatedly, and police wouldn't do a goddamn thing. Many of them outright laughed in my face. But of course, this is only happening to black people, right? Black lives matter. All lives matter. All of them. These children who are being stolen from their families, their lives matter too. The homeless, their lives matter too. The disabled, their lives matter too. Talking about being the most marginalized people in America. No, the fuck you're not. You are barely in the top fucking 10. Meanwhile, I fit, of the top 5, I fit 4 of those criteria. And the one that I don't is number 1 on the list, and that's foster children. And guess what, motherfuckers? I was a foster child growing up. Yes, I give a shit about these kids more than I give a fuck about your BLM racist bullshit. Yes, I give a fuck about these kids more than I care about the KKK's racist goddamn bullshit. I don't care what fucking color the kid is. Well, you think I posted up that shit about Centoya Brown because I wanted to be a racist asshole? You think I posted up her story and how fucking wrong what she had to go through is because I'm a racist asshole? You think I'm against Centoya Brown because I'm white? No, I'm glad she's free. She deserves it. But there's a lot of us who are ignored, who are victimized just as badly, if not worse, than what y'all want to complain about is apparently only happening to black folks. If it's not apparently only happening to black folks, then speak out about the real issue. If the real issue is how the system treats black people, then you need to speak out about the system. It's not white people who are doing this to you. There are very specific predators with very specific names, like Waylon Lolatai. Waylon Lolatai ain't the only name from there, is it? Oh no. We also got Keith Steinman. Is he the only one? No, he trained officers there. Here's what a kick to the balls the city council truly is to the homeless. Keith Steinman is a fucking bully. The city council knows it. They hire police officers specifically to harm the homeless. Officers who are willing to do so. Like Officer French, Officer Lolatai, Officer Steinman. Well, the people of Boulder had enough of that bullshit, and they spoke up and said, hey, we need to have some changes. We need somebody else in charge, especially downtown. All that shit going on with the homeless people is getting out of control. And you guys are taking innocent people out of the park and arresting them, and you're literally hopping over a minefield full of meth heads to do it. You are literally ignoring meth dealers. A whole bunch of them. You go pick out the ones that are, well, obviously homeless. But it's all right, because this shit only happens to black people, right? Well, I'm told that I owe black people for things that people that I am not even related to did before my family lived in this country. But I owe you for that because I'm white. And you can throw that in my face whenever you want, but I can't bring up the black people who are committing crimes, because if I bring them up at all, it must mean I'm a racist. I can't bring up the black folks who killed people just 2 days ago out of racial hatred and discontent. There was a mother of 6. She was a white woman. Her and a little black girl were killed at the same time. Nobody's talking about the white mother of six. We got white people talking about it. That's about it. And some of them white folks, I've seen it on my very own fucking news feed. This poor woman, she was a grandmother by that point, obviously. When she died, she was a lot older. But in the news article, it's saying, yeah, this woman was a mother of six. Her killer was a black man. The man who killed that little girl was also the very same black man. Those two victims didn't deserve that. And that mother of six doesn't deserve to have her story extinguished or flushed out like she didn't matter, like her life doesn't matter because she's not the right goddamn color. She was at your fucking rally. She was supporting your rights and your lives. And she's not worth a fucking footnote. Holy goddamn. See, the problem is it's not just happening to you. There are homeless people going through worse than you. There are disabled people going through worse than you. There are foster children going through worse than you. And guess what? You are overstepping your reach. This Dallas man killed by police, he's not the only one. You make a big deal when it happens to black folks, but when it happens to white folks, we're supposed to ignore it. We're supposed to pretend it didn't happen because it doesn't fit your bullshit of this is a race crime. There are plenty of race crimes. If it's a racially motivated crime, then by all means, prosecute it as a race crime. But it needs to be a race crime, not you pretending that everything that bad that happens to you is because of your skin color. You want us to speak about how evil it is that white people do these things to minorities like black people. But we're not allowed to say a goddamn thing when it happens the other way, or we're racist. Are you fucking kidding me? Here's the thing with Zaid Atkinson. People want to make excuses. A lot of black people were typing in the little comment section a whole bunch of racist bullshit. First of all, had to deal with a bunch of prejudice bullshit because, well, black people in houses are very similar to white people in houses or anybody else in a house. You all know that you can take shit out on the homeless people. Everybody in America fucking knows that. And anybody who wants to pretend otherwise is a goddamn liar. And if you're a goddamn liar, I don't want to fucking hear your opinion. You're a piece of shit. It's okay to blame me for things that happened in the 1800s and earlier. And it's okay to blame me for things that happened in the 1940s and 50s and 60s and 70s, isn't it? I wasn't born until 1980. Through most of my life, I have fought for your rights. That's the biggest fucking mistake most of these people made. Most of these people who didn't speak up, who didn't fight for my rights, but when it came to their rights, before all of this happened, I fought hard for them. And you know what? Since then, I've been put into a situation where I can't even defend myself. And many of them want to come to me and say, Sean, I need your help. I need your help. Sean, I want you to come to Colorado and testify against this person or that person. I can't go to Colorado without being victimized by the police, by the courts, by the Bollinger family, by the homeless. All because of something that black folks, white folks, basically anybody who's poor in America understands. Due process of law is not observed in the courts in America. Hasn't been for over a decade, nearly 2 decades. After 9/11, that was the end of the Constitution. They pretend we have our Second Amendment, and we obviously have the 13th Amendment. And who could forget the amendment that allows us to get drunk? Yes, yes, they allow us the firearms. We can't have the First Amendment, but we can have the Second Amendment, even though the Second Amendment was created to protect the First Amendment. That's our right to freedom of speech, and it's our right to freedom of religion. It's also our right to freedom of media. That means that by calling Facebook social media, it is illegal to censor it. Did you know that? Everything that's on your Facebook that has been taken down by Facebook, as it is an American company, if they have taken anything down off of your timeline, then they have committed a felony. Cops are cowards. You can't put on a badge without being a coward. Not in this day and age. You already know when you put on that badge, you're not doing the right thing. You are enforcing immoral laws. Some of those laws aren't just immoral, they're illegal by international law. The homeless in America are refugees. Yes, we have literally millions of refugees in the United States. Political refugees, United States citizens born in the United States of America, political refugees, and political prisoners. That's what happens when you speak up. That's when you stand up. You got to. We ain't going to get these people's children's back, including black children, without your help. And as long as you're making excuses why it's okay. Why it's okay to do it to them, but it's not okay to do to you. You're being the exact piece of shit I've been speaking out about for years. You have made yourself my enemy. That is your decision and not mine. You made yourself my enemy by telling me that I need to shut up and get to the back of the bus. You made me your enemy by being racist pieces of shit towards me, someone who never did you wrong. Because I wasn't heard. There are a lot of people who are dead. Something could have been done about this, but you didn't care. You didn't care. You only care if it's a black person. Telling a single mother who's got 6 kids, and they all got taken by the state because she doesn't have enough money to pay the insurance. So they're going to spend 5 times as much to ship those kids off to somewhere that don't love them. People who don't know them from Adam. You know, between paying out $1,700, $1,800 a month for each kid, and well, that much, you wouldn't even have to pay out that much for 6 kids. That much for one kid would take care of her insurance every month, and then some. So you take her children for being poor, and then they go into a system that produces 80 to 85% of all child pornography in the United States. Foster care system. A lot of people want to bring up the privatized prisons. Yeah, I grew up in the system. We're not talking about a computer programming system. We're not talking about a ventilation system. I was living behind some fucking aeration system in your fucking house. I'm talking about the juvenile system. I'm not speaking out my ass. I'm speaking from firsthand experience. Here's one where you get to see this guy's body flopping around for about 5 minutes. Sorry, Reed C. I was not trying to ignore you. I was on another screen, so I didn't get to see the stuff you're typing. Reed C. typed, "This is so true. God bless you, Sean." Hollis Letelier typed, "Oh, that gang. God bless you, dear heart, Sean." Thank you, but it's not God's blessings that I need. It's your active involvement in changing things. If you guys are mad, say you're mad at all these rioters, you don't agree with it, well, I want you to imagine those things are happening to you. I want you to imagine that the police shot your uncle, your cousin, your whoever. Things be a bit different then, wouldn't they? I want everyone to pay attention to this, not just black folks. See, well, we got black folks who are pissed off at what the police and the courts are doing to them. We got white folks who are pissed off at what the police and the courts are doing to them. We got black folks calling white folks racist, and white folks calling black folks racist. With all due respect, most of the racism that I see right now is coming from BLM. BLM is doing more to destroy this country than the goddamn police. Not every black person is involved with BLM. Not every white person is involved with BLM. You want to blame the Nazis for doing Nazi shit? That's fine. You want to blame the Jews for what the Nazis did? You and I are going to have some problems bringing a butt some fucking heads. I'm tired of BLM blaming the other victims for shit's fucking sake. Telling the other victims they need to shut up for now. No, telling us to shut up for now is telling us to shut up forever. Because there's stuff called the statute of limitations. The police prey on that shit every day. Y'all could learn a lot from some fucking white folks who have been through that shit. And those of you white folks going through that shit, you could learn a lot from the black folks who are going through that shit. But you have to fucking work together. And how the hell are you going to work together when instead of going after the government who's fucking doing this shit to you, you're going at each other's fucking throats? White people, white people, white people. Meanwhile, my entire life, I have heard about white people in specific as a description from black people, as if all white people are doing this. So I say black people now. And a lot of folks find that offensive. They're African Americans, like fucking hell they are. If they were born in the United States, they're American. You know, Haitians are black too. And we like to sell this narrative that the black people who are in Haiti are transplants from slave ships. No, they're not. We've exhumed people from Haiti who are dead, who were on that island long before white people showed up. And guess what? Them bones tell us that those people were black back then too. Makes sense, doesn't it? They're closer to the equator. How about Aborigines? They're not from Africa either. What about people from India? Met a lot of really dark people from India. Are they African Americans? So you're pissed off at the government, and you're taking that out on the other children, basically. Your daddy molested you, so you're going to go molest your younger siblings. Way to fucking fix the issue. Yes, that is totally the best solution we could have possibly fucking come up with, isn't it? Also, with the violence, I understand that violence. I understand that protest after protest after protest and nothing fucking changes. And when does the government finally do something to change it? When they're fucking scared for their goddamn lives. That's right. These police are afraid for their lives now. These government officials are afraid for their lives now, and you see how they're trying to make some change, but they're trying to make racial reparations. So we're not making the laws that need to be made, the laws that allow us to enforce that. It's already more illegal to commit a crime against a black person than it is a white person. It's already in the law books as being more illegal. It is more against the law if you have two people standing in front of you, one of them's white, one of them's black, you beat up the black one, well, you're a lot more likely to be charged with a hate crime. But you don't know nothing about that, do you? You should. The thing is that it's a poverty issue. There are lots of white poor people. Holy shit, imagine that. And because of the 13th Amendment, slavery is still legal in the United States today. That's why we have the private prisons. Makes these pedophiles and their friends a lot of fucking money. Cat's out of the bag. We know about these child molesters. You didn't want to listen to me. You wanted to call me mentally ill. And what did it result in? A lot of dead people. And guess what? I didn't kill any of them. Not a single one. Tibor Hatay would be alive if the police had done something when I spoke out. Those 6 people that Waylon Lolatai assaulted after he assaulted me would not have been assaulted if they'd have fucking done something when I spoke out. Natalie Bollinger would still be alive if the police had done something when I spoke out. Elijah McClain would be alive if something had been done when I spoke out. Right after Natalie Bollinger was killed, there were 6 people in the Denver metro area, Denver and Boulder area, who were beaten to death for looking like me. Beaten to death. 5 people beaten to death for looking like a man who ended up being innocent in the end anyway. Meanwhile, I still have to deal with being victimized every day. But it must be okay, because I'm not the right color to be a victim. I'm not the right gender to be a victim. I don't have a wallet enough to hire a lawyer, so I can't be a victim. Meanwhile, this is a black issue, right? On the conservative numbers, 502 people were killed by the police last year. By the conservative numbers, 217 of those, that's almost half, Almost half of those killed by police last year were homeless. Over half were disabled. But yeah, it's a black issue, isn't it? Quake wasn't black, he's still dead. Brian Gray wasn't black, but he's still dead. Shady Dan wasn't black, but he's still dead. Tony Timpa, not black, but he's still dead. Dmitry Shanklin, not black, but he's still dead. Tiber Hatay, not breathing any longer. But yes, I do acknowledge that the other victims, even the ones who are black, I acknowledge that they were victimized. I acknowledge that Zaid Atkinson was not treated properly by the Boulder Police Department. But then again, they treat the homeless like that every day, so who cares? Oh yeah, it's a black college kid. We do need to remember that part. Because when they did that to Crozy, nobody gave a shit. When they did that to Mark Swanigan, nobody gave a shit. When they did that to Brian Townsend, nobody gave a shit. What do these men have in common? They're all black and homeless. Brown bricks type, whoa. John, please tell us the truth. Why do you cover your mouth for every thumbnail? I cover my mouth in support of the families of many, many missing and murdered Indigenous people in the United States. Over 100 people in 10 years missing from within 100 miles of Hardin, Montana. We're not talking about a big area. We're not talking about a big area at all. We're definitely not talking about a big population. Those numbers, those aren't specific to Hardin, Montana. It's not even specific to reservations in the United States. Canada's got the same problem. So does Mexico. Let's see. All this little air typed, if you dislike this, you're a fucking goddamn sheep. You know that? Well, everybody's allowed their opinions, right? But what we need is less opinions and more facts. What are your opinions based on? Did you take the time to look at the information? If you didn't, you really don't have a place to speak. If a jury only gets to see one side, then that's a rigged jury. That jury doesn't have to be rigged by threatening them or their families. They don't have to be rigged by picking out ones that are specifically positioned Democrat on their voter card. This person that you're trying to prosecute has some very Republican views. No, we're talking about something as simple as, hey, this right here shows that, well, the police and the Bollinger family have been doing this shit to this guy for, well over a year. And it's actually been several years by this point. Oh my God. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get distracted. I just realized I got a big ass splinter between my fingers. It's a pretty big splinter. I don't actually have anything to pull it out with. Mm. Get that out of there before it gets infected and starts to fester. Now, I want you to know that a lot of the stuff that black folks are complaining about, they're telling the truth. I've been through this shit my whole life. I grew up with minorities. I didn't move to Chapel, Nebraska until I was 15. When I say this shit's happening to black folks, I do mean it. But it's also happening to white folks. It's happening to poor folks all over the United States. People having to be afraid of the police, afraid to go to the police. How are we supposed to trust the police? Let's see. Brown Bricks typed. Sorry, this is a bit off topic. Sean, what's your favorite position in bed? Trolls. Are we used to these on this page? Absolutely, we are. Brown Bricks, I'm used to racist assholes. I'm used to prejudice assholes. I'm used to sexist assholes. I'm just straight up used to assholes. So, Mr. Brown Bricks or Mrs. Brown Bricks, because obviously your name is Brown Bricks, we know that that's what the internet is used for. It's used so that people with pathetic lives can get their kicks. Try to get as many likes as possible. That's what's important. It's not about who's right and wrong anymore. It's about what's popular. Well, that's actually what it's always been. The government exists by popularity. If popularity drops below a certain point, the government loses control and we have a regime change. You think rich people really want to have a regime change? All right, well, I got that splinter out, but it is now a gaping hole. But you can see how high up it goes. It's about half an inch into my finger, it looked like. And judging by the little bits and chunks and pieces and flakes that I pulled out, I got most of it out. If I get an infection, fuck it, I'll slice it open, pop out the infection, and whatever foreign material is still in there, and I'll call it good. Olis Letelier typed, "What the hell, Brown Bricks?" Also, Olis, I'm sorry if I keep calling you Otis or if I get your name wrong. I'm not used to that name. It's not like a Matthew or an Andrew or a Thomas or something like that. It's a different name than I'm used to. That doesn't make it weird, just different. I know that up in Hardin, Montana, a lot of people couldn't get past the names. When I was speaking about all the missing people there and some of their names, like Frida Noses Gun. We're like, what the hell kind of a name is that? Well, it's a Native American name. It's different than what you might be used to. But just so you know, a lot of your names mean things very similar in the native countries they come from. You might want to reflect on that instead of making fun of them for having different names. I come from a racist family, but I wasn't raised by those racists. I was raised in the system. I was raised with minorities. Now, there was a guy tonight, he was wanting to argue with me. A lot of people, they don't want to talk about it till they're drinking, and then they're all full of opinion and not full of listening. And I tried to explain to him for nearly an hour and a half what it's like to be treated mentally ill. Meanwhile, he wants to get progressively more talkative over me and progressively tell me more and more what I should do, what I should do. He's not listening to what I have to say by that point. He's got it stuck on this one little nugget, and he's going to keep on throwing that nugget at me as if that marble is going to magically fall into the right hole and be the solution to all my problems, and it's not. What it all comes down to is that not a goddamn person that I have tried to explain this shit to understands what hell it is to not have your family care, to not have the ability or the right to fight back. All because of the fact that you exist as a different person, such as being black. What if you're black and homeless? You're even worse off. What if you're black, homeless, and mentally ill? Well, then you fit two of the top five criteria for the most victimized people in America. Two of them. Do you know why? Because the color of your skin isn't even on the top five. It is barely on the top 10. But you want the majority of the victims to shut up and pretend that it didn't happen, because at this point we're trying to pretend that it only happens to black people, and anybody who says anything otherwise is a racist who hates black people, right? The things that happen to me, the fact that I speak out about them, must mean that I'm racist, right? Well, no, it doesn't. Matter of fact, I'm rather pissed off because there's a lot of black people who are getting a lot of publicity for being dead who would not be dead if the police had listened in specific to Sean David Schwartz. But then again, I'm white, so this must not happen to me. I'm white, so I can't possibly know what police brutality is like. I'm white, so I can't possibly know what it's like to grow up in the system. That's some ignorant goddamn bullshit. You know, I've gotten to hear most of my life about how the government invented cocaine to bring the black man down. Meanwhile, what was I in the system for? Was I in the system because I was a bad kid? Was I in the system because I was a drug dealer? Was I in the system because I was a rapist or a murderer? No. I went into the system when I was 4. What the fuck do you think I went in there for? It's because this black problem happened to be my mom's drug of choice, who is a white lady, and my dad's drug of choice, who is a white male. I've been told my whole life about how cocaine is a rich person's drug. And then I also hear about how cocaine is a black person's problem. And yeah, it's not. My mom's not rich. My dad wasn't rich. It was the 80s. Cocaine was everywhere. Although my dad did only serve, I believe, 6 years on a mandatory 20. There's white privilege for you. Moldy sponge type. Hi, Sean. You mentioned rich people not wanting a regime change. What would an ideal regime change look like to you? Do you think it is possible under capitalism? Um, Nothing but cruelty is possible under capitalism. Capitalism, in specific, only benefits the greedy. So, yeah, there's not much you can do under a capitalist society. What would an ideal regime change look like? It's not necessarily even the regime, because we can't just get rid of the one head and call it good. We got to clean up the whole system. If we're going to rehire some of these guys because they're not so bad, well, that's fine, but they need to be fired for now. Judges, lawyers, public pretenders, police officers, they all need to be let go. We need to replace them with people who are not accustomed to breaking the law every day and get away with it. What we have is a system of people being friends. Well, how does that work? Well, you and your partner are friends. Your partner breaks the law. He's your partner. Now you're going to break the law to cover for him. It's no big deal. This is just a homeless guy that you beat up. Yeah, you made a mistake, but there's no reason for your partner's career to be over and possibly yours. There's no reason for your families to have to suffer because you made a mistake. It's fine to allow this innocent person to suffer for those mistakes. We need to stop that. We need to start over from scratch. And that starts with burning the whole goddamn thing down. We have been trying to do it the peaceful way. When you try to turn in the bad police officers, the other police officers harm you for it. When you try to show evidence in court, you're not allowed. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you're poor, your rights don't exist. Plain and simple. Due process of law doesn't exist if you're considered mentally ill. Due process of law does not exist if you're black. Due process of law does not exist if you're Native American. Due process of law doesn't exist for so many Americans that really we need to either remove the due process of law part out of the book and say, all right, nobody's entitled to due process of law, or we need to force a change by monitoring these people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you're on duty and you're a police officer, you need to be monitored, both video and audio. There are too many police officers getting busted by their own body cameras. Do you really think that those officers would have committed those crimes knowing that their body cameras were on? Most of those officers would have turned off their body cameras. So the only ones that we see caught by the body cameras, well, we only get to see those most of the time if the civilian records it first, and then they'll release the body cam footage. Body cam footage from my situations, none of it's ever been released. Why is that? A regime change isn't Donald Trump. I mean, it really doesn't matter who the fuck's in office right now. We need to break this down on the smaller level. We have had our entire country infiltrated by people who want positions of capitalist power. They want the money. They don't mind selling your children to get it. They don't mind taking your 6-year-old blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl in Boulder County and selling that child to a family in Denver, or a family in Lyman, or a family in Estes Park. They have no problems taking away your children and sending them to foster homes. By the way, Black Lives Matter, they're doing this to black children too. They're doing this to black homeless people too. They're doing this to black women too. So instead of telling me to get to the back of the goddamn bus, you should pay attention to the fact that I'm fighting for your goddamn rights, or you fighting for mine. Or does my life not matter? Do the other victims' lives not matter? How long are you going to victimize the other victimized? How long are you going to shame the other victims for speaking out? Shame on you. Anyone who wants to associate themselves with BLM. I am so disgusted. Please pretend that the other victims are humans too. Stop pretending that they don't exist because they're not the right color. Stop pretending that Bob is the only one at the table who's not allowed to eat. Stop pretending that there's only one sheep missing from the herd. Stop pretending like you're better than everyone else. You know, when BLM first came out, I was all for it. I was like, yes, this is a good start. But now I look at BLM and I'm ashamed of myself for ever doing so. I've seen too many hate crimes go unchecked. It don't matter if you're racist or sexist, it's still prejudice. And that prejudice against the homeless and the disabled allows the courts to deny us due process of law. Just like they're doing in family courts. CPS writing their own warrants. CPS shouldn't be allowed to write their own warrants. Police should not be able to make decisions that only doctors should be allowed to make. "21 dead bodies. 21 dead bodies directly related to the police not wanting to do their jobs when it comes to the mentally ill or the homeless. A regime change for me would probably start with getting rid of the news stations. And hiring people, actual people, who don't have to run a rat's race to try to invent the most interesting story to sell for ratings. But actual news. Actual news. If it's about ratings, then it's about money. It's about capitalism. And if it's about capitalism, it's about greed. The people who work the hardest get the least out of it. And the people who work the least get the most out of it. That's capitalism. It's also communism. It's also socialism. It's also our so-called democratic republic. These are all great forms of government on paper. All of them. On paper, they are fucking wonderful. In actuality, the Russians fucked it up. We fucked it up. The Germans fucked it up. The Brits fucked it up. Everybody fucked it up. But then again, if you're just going to sit back on your couch eating Fritos, well, you're not doing anything to affect change, are you? You speak out for black people. That's a good start. But this bullshit narrative is going along with that, especially in the last year. Fuck that. The homeless are still fucking human beings, even the black ones. I'm a white guy, right? I get thrown in my face that I'm white all the fucking time. And guess what? I stuck up for Mark Swanigan. He's not white. I stuck up for Brian Townsend. He's not white. Did I stick up for them because they were racially profiled? No. I stood up for them because what was happening to them I wouldn't want happening to me, which is the difference between me and most of you. And by you, I'm not talking about just black people. I'm talking about most of you in the United States, especially. An ideal regime change, it doesn't matter who the figurehead is. It all comes down to due process of law and the fact that we don't enforce it. We intentionally make it so that we can't enforce it. We need to defend our neighbors regardless of what color they are. We need to defend the children regardless of what color they are. We need to defend the elderly regardless of what color they are. Now I'm going to tell you something when it comes to the COVID-19. Yeah. A lot of people who were completely cold-hearted about the homeless. Completely cold-hearted. Didn't give a fuck if every homeless person fucking freezes to death or dies of the super flu or whatever. But then COVID-19 shows up and they could die. All of a sudden now they give a shit. You need to wear masks. You need to wear masks. You didn't give a fuck while my friends were fucking freezing to death in Boulder, goddamn Colorado, because it's illegal to use a fucking blanket. But you don't want to get sick. You don't want your granny to fucking die of that shit. I'd rather have everybody on the planet die of COVID-19 than have one more person shot in the head who didn't do nothing wrong. I would rather have everyone on the planet die of natural causes or an act of God for those of you Christians than have one more child fucking raped. These aren't black problems. This is the United States of America. It's nationwide. It's happening to people of every color nationwide. It is not a black issue. Have a nice day.